Please be seated. Now, all the children, if you would come forward. But you're actually not going to come here. We're all going over here. And somebody moved my second table, so we're going to need that table back over here. Today we have an art project. Yay. Yeah. Okay, so let's fill in. So some of the confirmation students are going to be over here with you, and they're here to make sure you guys behave. And you're here to make sure they behave. And if you're a confirmation student, you can either do sermon notes today or you can do the art project. Okay. So everybody grab a sheet of paper and a marker or crayon. And this is what I want you to draw.
The smiley face.
I want you to draw, crayon, marker, whatever you're afraid of. Okay? And take your time. You got about 10 to 11 minutes, and then I'm going to come back over here and see you. Okay, y'all got to be quiet, though. You got to be quiet. Okay. So the text today tells us that fear is the beginning of wisdom. And as I was thinking about when I was a child, the first thing I was afraid of, when I was, 4 or 5, maybe younger than that, we went to a carnival on a weekend at, I think it was the Fish Fly Festival in New Baltimore, Michigan. And they had, you ever go to the carnivals and you see where they put kids on the swings and it just goes around? And so my mother put me on these swings, and it just started going around. Well, all of a sudden, a storm came in off of one of the lakes, and there was a tornado warning in the area, and the wind was blowing really, really hard, and they couldn't get the swings to stop. And so I was going around, and I was having a good time, and then everyone started yelling, and every time I went around, I saw my mom screaming. It was like, it takes a couple seconds to get around. She started screaming, and I started screaming, and I didn't know what to do, and they couldn't figure out how to get the thing stopped because the wind was blowing so hard. And ever since then, as a kid, I was afraid of storms. It was something that my friends made fun of me because, believe it or not, when I would be 6 or 7, we'd have a sleepover at someone's house, and if I heard there was a tornado, this really happened. I'm living in Michigan. On the news, there was a tornado in Texas. And I had to go home because I was and so my friends still make fun of me about that. But the text says we should fear the Lord. Fearing the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Now, as people of God, it's hard for us to fear God because we know God is loving through the cross of Christ. But I do have fears. I do have fears today. And I'm kind of... as a grown man, I feel like I shouldn't fear anything, but I do. And the first thing that I fear bickering. I fear arguing. I fear when two people or two political parties just scream at each other and they don't stop to listen. I fear what can come of that. And I feel like there's a lot of that going on in our nation right now. And it scares me, frankly, because I know what it can lead to. This past week, I don't know if anyone saw this, but there was Bill Clinton is on Twitter, and he tweeted a picture of himself reading a book that George W. Bush wrote about George H.W. Bush. And he wrote that such a great book, enjoying it, what a great tribute to your father, you should be on Twitter. To which George W. Bush replied on Instagram and said, "Thank you, you should be on Instagram." And it was kind of a funny, cute little conversation, but what came across is that these two men respect each other. And they're friendly with one another. And you don't see that among politicians of separate parties these days. And I just read, and I go, I know I don't agree with a lot of you know what I mean. But at the same time, it was nice and refreshing to see that they could have this type of conversation and that millions of people could be a part of this type of conversation because they were having it over social media. And I just thought, why can't we have more of this? Because this is nice. It's clear they disagree on things, and that's okay, but still, dare I say, they're friends. And you could see that. So I fear bickering. But more than that, and I think what that can lead to is evil. It's pure evil. And I fear evil. I fear not, there's a lot of, evil takes lots of shapes and forms, and it comes out in greed and pride and all these things. But I fear the evil that comes out as, my life is worth more than your life. I think that is so evil. Where the value of life is different based on where you were born, the color of your skin, your socioeconomic status, all these types of things that we divide people by. And I think a great example of this is when the big news broke about Ebola in West Africa, we were all, oh man, we should do something. But then Ebola came to America, and we're like, whoa, we really need to do something. And it was the headline news for weeks. And then, okay, we've got all the cases of Ebola in America taken care of. We don't need to talk about it anymore. But it's still a big problem. We don't talk about it. We do very few things to make the disease that's still in West Africa go away. And to me, I'm uncomfortable. I'm frightened by that because it shows that we care more about the people who live around us than we care about people on the other side of the world, that their lives don't matter as much as ours. And that's not true. It's not true in the eyes of God. The psalm today says that God looks at everybody equally, with equity. And I think we're going to have a bishop from Sierra Leone here. Ken's working on it, Bishop Tom Barnett. If we can have him here, he could share so much more information about that. In the next couple months, he's going to be here. Hopefully, we're going to get him here. But evil scares me. But the thing that scares me most, it's not bickering, it's not the evil that it leads to, it's apathy. Apathy scares me the most. Outside where I went to seminary, there's a statue of the Holocaust. And on it is written a Protestant pastor at the time who opposed Nazi Germany. One of his quotes, which said, "At first they came for the socialists, and I said nothing because I was a socialist. And then they came for the trade unionists, and I said nothing because I wasn't a trade unionist. And then they came for the Jews, and I said nothing because I wasn't a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was nobody left to say anything." Apathy, when we don't stand up for something that we see that is wrong, it's a dangerous world to live in. And we are called to stand up when we see something that is wrong and say, that is wrong. But so often in my life, when I see things that are wrong, I say, that is wrong, but it's not my problem. And that scares me, that it's so easy for me to say that. And so, when I think of all the fears that I have about our world, God is the last on the list. God is the last on the list of my fears, because when God came to this world in the form of Jesus Christ, he saw people arguing, and he entered into the conversation. He walked into the temple courts and said, wait a second, you guys are really missing the point. Our text today, he walked in, and a demon-possessed man looked at him, knew who he was, and said, have you come here to destroy us? Because demons are afraid of God, because they know the power of God. And Jesus said, no, I'm here to teach. I'm here to be part of the conversation and to show you what you're missing. And they looked at him and said, you're just a peasant. Your life isn't worth as much as ours. And so we're going to crucify you. And good people stood around and watched and did nothing to stop it. And he died. And the thing that frightens me most is that in 2,000 years, the world hasn't changed. And it will never change until we realize how big and powerful God is and how much God is capable of. And all God wants in return from us is to know that we are loved and to love one another. Let's see how the kids are doing. You guys still working? What are some of the things that, afraid of spiders?
Clown. I'm doing my brother's too since he's not here.
You're doing your brother's too? Okay. You're afraid of clowns?
I'm afraid of clowns.
Did you say you're afraid of the government? Hippies running the government? Okay. What else are we afraid of?
That the world's gonna explode in Black Widows.
The world's going to explode, Black Widows and heights?
Yes.
What about you?
Sickness.
Is that a fish or the world exploding?
It's a meteor.
Meteor, okay. What else? Sickness, afraid of sickness. I tell you what we're going to do. When you're done, just leave them all here. And you know what we're going to do? I'm going to take these this week and we're going to put them on a wall in the shape of a cross. Because God calls us to give everything that we're afraid of over to God. And on the cross, Jesus died for everything, right? Yes. Everything that comes into our life, everything that we have to worry about, everything that we're anxious about, Jesus takes away from us and shows us his love and gives us a gift of eternal life so that even if a meteor hit the world, we wouldn't have to worry because we know where we're going, right? Okay, you guys can keep working. We're going to continue with worship, and as soon as you're done, go back to your parents, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
I'm done.
You're done?
Tell you what mine is.
Let's stand and sing our hymn.